I said I also want to acknowledge Alma Pendleton, who was here in the room, who was part of the U.S. delegation. All right. Comments and friends, back on April 30th, 2006, the Paris suburb of Saint-Denis took a courageous and principled stand in naming a newly constructed street after U.S. political prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal on death row in Pennsylvania at that time. The defiant act sparked a frenzy of efforts to remove the sign, and this is the sign. That drive was led by the Philadelphia Fraternal Order of Police with backing from U.S. corporate media and politicians, including some U.S. senators. The reactionary campaign continues to this day. However, let me see if I can get this up. Will it come to the next one? Or what do I have to do to get to the next one, sir? Okay. I'll just tell you to shift the... Okay. However, on this April 30th, Saint-Denis Mayor Didier Pallard, along with other city officials... Where can I get the next? There we go.
Click on the slide. Wait, this is later.
Here?
Yeah.
Click on the slide. Over here.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Technology is working. Okay. They marked the 10th anniversary of their historic act of resistance to racist state pressure, gathering in front of a slightly battered, from the first sign, but clearly visible marker for Rue Mumia Abu-Jamal that has defied all efforts to tear it down. They were joined by representatives from other cities in France that had named Abu-Jamal an honorary citizen, and 9 members of a delegation from the U.S. also participated in the ceremony. So, slide 3.
No, that's for...
That one, yeah, okay. Our delegation included Mumia Abu-Jamal's brother, Keith Cook, Suzanne Ross, and Alma Pendleton from the New York Free Mumia Coalition, again. Pastor Renee McKenzie from Philadelphia's historic Church of the Advocate, Estela Vasquez from local 1199 SEIU in New York, Marilyn Zuninga, a young teacher who was fired because her third grade students sent Mumia get well cards a year ago, Niall Fort, a student of religion and African American studies at Princeton, and comrades Johnny Stevens and myself representing the International Action Center. And we had a great crew, I can't tell you. In addition to being able to celebrate the victory of the people of Saint-Denis over the efforts of the FOP and right-wing U.S. politicians to take down the sign marking Rue Mumia Abu-Jamal, our trip coincided with the celebration of May Day in Paris, in the midst of an intense labor and student struggle against the French neoliberal ruling class's efforts to take back hard-won gains of French workers. And I'll be covering more on the May Day later in the talk. I also want to give a brief update on what's happening with the U.S. campaign to secure treatment for Hep C for Mumia and other prisoners. Our stay, in the next slide, our stay, this is the wonderful municipal inn that's run by the city of Saint-Denis that housed us during our stay. And it was hosted by the Saint-Denis Committee for Mumia and this Paris suburb's very progressive and left-leaning municipal government. There are a majority of the 100,000 people who live in Saint-Denis are immigrants from former French colonies in Africa, the Middle East, and the Caribbean. Many are undocumented, sans papier, I hope I said that right, without legal status or an ID card that would allow them to work. As a result, poverty runs high. The next one. So, following the November 2015 bombings in Paris, Saint-Denis became the target of federal raids looking for alleged suspects, including Abdelhamid Aboud. The town was put on a lockdown by police with military reinforcements. The roads were shut off and public transportation was suspended. Maybe they... And okay. Yeah. Yeah. I came across some BBC coverage of this that quoted a Saint-Denis resident who noted that while the Paris attacks lasted a few hours, hundreds of people die every day in Palestine and in Syria because of France's intervention. Anger among immigrants in Saint-Denis goes back to France's war in Algeria from 1954 to 1962, in which at least 60,000 Algerian civilians died. The state repression in Saint-Denis is evident still today. Johnny Stevens and I were able to visit a local outdoor market on May Day before leaving for Paris. And at one point I got separated from Johnny and I was thinking, what do I do? Do I walk away? And the next thing I know, I'm seeing soldiers like this, walking through, holding their weapons out like that, in this outdoor market on a busy shopping day. Except for the weather, this would be exactly what I was seeing. And I decided it probably wasn't wise to pull out my cell phone and take my own pictures, so I borrowed this slide. The next one. I want to give a brief explanation of these. Our host, as I mentioned, included the municipal officials as well as the people from Saint-Denis. So on the left is Yannick, who is our interpreter through this. In the two over is Mayor Paillard, Juliet, who is our host, and Florence, who are our hosts from Saint-Denis. And Florence in the middle, we did a radio program with her that I'll mention a little bit later. And then at the end of this is the man who is the director of education in Saint-Denis, who we were able to talk with and interview a little bit about their school system. At the welcoming reception that was held here, that one also, let me go to that next. This is Juliet's husband, Willie, who is a professional photographer, and he was also very supportive of us throughout the trip and also as an interpreter. And I took this photo because he was in Philadelphia last May 13th on the 30th anniversary of the observation of the bombing of Move. And in the reception for us on the next day, his photos were on display. So I was just particularly impressed with these photos, and he actually gave them to me on a flash drive, so we have them. But the evening before the celebration, we were welcomed at a reception in the mayor's office. And at the time, Mayor Paillard noted that you could hear languages from 130 different nations in Saint-Denis. He says we hear here the echoes of all struggles, including Palestine. The naming of this street is not just an act of resistance, it is an act of struggle, and that was very evident from what we saw. Saint-Denis has a long history of naming its streets after individuals who have contributed to the global fight against colonialism, racism, and imperialism. The city has a Rue Amilcar Cabral and a Rue Nelson Mandela, and I could go on. I mean, there's a long list. However, said Paillard, it is very rare for the city to name a street after someone who is still alive. Having this street for Mumia helps our city take a stance in the struggle for liberation of all people. And I want to get to the actual pictures of the street, but I just was impressed by this. This is wallpaper in the municipal building in Saint-Denis, which we were all just amazed about what the art behind that was. But they also, gave us more background on the relationship between Saint-Denis and Paris. And the mayor noted that the last 10 years have been marked by extreme political changes in France, including cuts in education and the recent attacks on workers' long-standing rights. With gentrification increasing over the last 15 years, Saint-Denis' population grew by 25%, with low-income workers who could not afford housing in Paris. In response to this crisis, Saint-Denis has created social housing, maybe move down. And some of this, I think, on the right side, I'm not sure which way it's facing you. The lower side of this is an example of that. Maybe the next one. Yeah. The buildings in the back. Pretty much everywhere you looked in Saint-Denis, you could see, these housing units. And they provide social housing for 80% of the residents so they can remain in the suburb. He noted that, we can't stop free market forces, but we can keep control of space and grounds to prevent market speculation. Maybe go to the next one. Okay.
Next one?
Yeah. This is some of the construction that was pretty evident throughout. Maybe the next one. Yeah. Many in Saint-Denis are under 30, and most make half the average wage found in other areas in France. In the last 12 years, Saint-Denis has also added 6 more schools, but continues to face a shortage of teachers. Under French law, municipalities are responsible for education facilities, while the state pays teachers' salaries. And the lunch during the street naming ceremony the next day was held at one of the recently constructed schools. Maybe going back one.
Go back?
Go to, where is it, this one here? Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. We in the conversation, we talked a lot about how does the school system that's being heavily impacted by funding cuts deal with the diversity of languages, and it was a very honest and open discussion. The actual celebration of the street naming, the next one, and this is a photo of Rue Mumia Abu-Jamal. It took place the next day. It was impacted by a steady drizzle that eventually forced us inside the school, but it didn't stop people from coming out. At the street naming anniversary celebration, the performers were from Mali, and members of the host group were Algerian, Turkish, Palestinian, and from Guadeloupe. So maybe go down one more. This is the actual street. And one more. And this is our delegation again. This is us, and unfortunately I cut off, or somebody cut off the actual street name above us, but yeah, maybe the next one.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm back. And I wanted to mention that Bill Bachman and Corinne Kemp Bachman from New York were also in Paris for this naming. So these are just some of the photos of the next one. This is the actual, the mayor reading the proclamation for the anniversary. These were the drummers that I mentioned before. Again, more of us in Alma over in the corner. I think Mirelle Fanon Mendes France Fanon's daughter is here on the side. These are some of the young people in the area. That's more of the youth with Keith Cook. Yeah, go ahead. These are members of the James Baldwin Collective, which is a gay progressive communist group that we met in Paris. Go ahead. And there are lots of young people in the area. Yeah, Johnny's in that one. Maybe the next one. You see the buttons? We were able to get out buttons to everybody. The next one. That was, this is Juliet's son, Raphael, and some of the youth in the area. And the singers, these were amazing women, and I don't know how to describe the type of singing they did, but it was, and danced, and danced. Let me see if I can get back on my notes here. Okay, then, these were more the singers and the dancers. Yeah. And these are photos around the school where they had signs hanging. Another one. This is all. The school design was very unusual. I think we were, and again, Keith and Alma and one of the James Baldwin Collective members, and Suzanne and Johnny and some of the...
Now Keith is the one with the cap?
Keith is with the cap on the left, yeah, that's Mumia's brother. Okay. And that was another one of Willie's photos from Philadelphia last year. This is a banner from the Real Justice Coalition in Philadelphia, so it was great to see it on the wall in Saint-Denis. Okay, let me stop with this. So we received media coverage while we were there, and going through the airport on the day we left, we were told to look for them. So this is, let me see if I can find the photo. So this is La Humanité, which is, a French communist paper, which one would not expect to find in an airport in the U.S., but they were, they were in the airport in France. And this is the coverage. I can pass this around. This is the coverage. Actually, 2 pages. So there was more on the next thing. So we weren't able to get a lot of copies of this, but. It was very nice to see that. We also let me go down to the next 2. That was okay. So this is that's the next one. Okay, so we were also invited to speak. Some of us, Johnny, Estella, Suzanne, Keith, and I, were invited to a youth-focused radio blog to discuss conditions for workers in the U.S. And the program was translated. The website's up there that you can actually listen to the blog. And we were able to cover quite a bit, both about the Boston school bus drivers' victory over the French multinational corporation Veolia, and also the Verizon strike that was going on, and also the movements in the U.S., the immigrant rights movement, the low-wage workers' struggles, and the Black Lives Matter movement. So it was a great opportunity to have that dialogue. The 10th anniversary embodies the international solidarity that time and again has proved critical to winning victories in the struggle, including Mumia's release from death row in December 2011. It contributes today to the fight to demand that the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections provide Abu-Jamal and other Pennsylvania prisoners with desperately needed medicine to cure hepatitis C. And we have postcards here. If you haven't signed one of the postcards, it's still time to do it. The French supporters of Mumia have sent over 3,000 signed petitions to support the demand that Mumia get the medicines. Yeah. And as I said, the petitions have still been collected. They can also be signed online at iacenter.org/Mumia Hep C sign. And they'll be delivered to Governor Tom Wolf sometime this summer. We're probably looking at around the July 4th weekend because of the significance of that. And the next one, I think, that was us sitting around in the studio. Okay, and these are the sides. Okay, and I wanted to end with this. This banner is kind of the segue into the May Day coverage, but. The example set by Saint-Denis is one that speaks to the global power of oppressed people to struggle against all odds, knowing that without struggle there can be no victory. And it was with this understanding that the fight must continue until Mumia Abu-Jamal, an innocent man, ultimately wins his freedom from prison. Now, the street naming ceremony came one day just before. Actually, it came days after 170,000 French workers and students and youth took to the streets in general strike on April 28th for the 4th time in 2 months to demand that the government withdraw a new labor law that would eliminate the 35-hour work week and other benefits won by struggle over the years. The law would have particularly egregious effect on workers in Saint-Denis, and this was a delegation of undocumented workers as part of the protests in Paris on Sunday. Let me find my notes on that. Is that the last slide? I think it is. Oh, that was, I forgot, yeah. We brought this banner with us. So this was in Paris on May Day. We were able to hold that banner up there, yeah. Workers' Will was on, yeah. All right. All right. I think that's all this. I'm going to shift gears a little bit to talk more about the May Day in Paris. So I think we have a video. Okay.
Does that say?
That's people marched in May Day in Paris and other cities. For the march, we were in a group of people from the Mumia school in France. And down the street, Khomri, Khomri.
What is it?
It's the name of the law that's being pushed through the legislation. Is that all of that one? Okay, maybe go to. A contingent of Latin American workers who were, yeah. Maybe we can go to the slides. You know, a flavor of what the march looked like. I have a few slides too that maybe we can go through as I'm talking, but. So I said we were waiting for the march to come by us, and it was heading to the Place de la République, I think you have to excuse my French. And, you know, all of a sudden, you know, when it should have been at us, all of a sudden we saw police and tear gas. And apparently 2 hours after the start of the march, police they chose that time to confront a group of around 200 youth near the front of the march and block the progress. And they actually stopped the progress of the march for 2 or 3 hours, I think. And, you know, the police were using tear gas and stun guns. They claimed that it was in response to the youth, maybe the PowerPoint. Okay, PowerPoint. The response to you throwing bottles and rocks, but we only saw bottles being thrown after we saw the tear gas. And there were people, we did witness people who were injured. These are just some of the signs that you could see on the walls. This is the police in Paris. And the struggle has really been, as I mentioned before, you know, it's been a couple of months now of a struggle against these proposed reforms. These are banners from the Congress of, what is the name of the group? The General Confederation of Workers, the CGT. This again is the undocumented, is this on? And under the provisions of this law, it would make it harder for students and younger workers to enter the workforce to get their, this is an anti-war contingent actually, to get their full-time work. It would also abolish the current 35-hour work week and remove protections against excessive overtime. And it would weaken the unions. You know, so there were massive contingents in this march that were protesting against this. The labor law was due for a vote on May 3rd. It appeared to have considerable opposition to it. And as a result, just this week, they found some obscure provision that allowed them to kind of circumvent it going through the lower house of Parliament for a vote. So right now it's headed toward the higher part of Parliament. But there have been tens of thousands of workers coming out in the streets as a result. You know, there's been new protests and strikes daily. And we have video of this that, you know, Johnny will make available, but I don't have it with me. I just want to end on one note. So we actually got to go into Paris the first day we arrived. Johnny and I went there because we realized that Veolia's office, corporate office, is in Paris. So we kind of adventured on the subway with our limited French and found the office, and Johnny had a copy of the new pamphlet that's out on the Boston victory. So we stood in front of Veolia's corporate headquarters on the streets of Paris and talked about the victory of the Boston school bus drivers over this corporation and told them more is to come. coming back from an international trip, we've always known the importance of international solidarity, but it really, I think, is driven home by that, and again, fortified by tonight. I think so many of these struggles are interconnected. The comment on Puerto Rico, now has more people in the U.S. from their diaspora than in Puerto Rico. And while the conditions were not the same for the driving people out, it goes back to the greed of capitalism and the need, as a colony of the U.S. I want to actually focus my remarks on encouraging people to come to Philadelphia in July this year for protests against the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
And all of these struggles come together in the platform of Hillary Clinton and the legacy that her husband Bill Clinton laid out with the crimes bill, the Effective Death Penalty Act that resulted in Mumia and other prisoners being denied their right to appeal, and her international policies, which, she's a very strong and avid supporter of the state of Israel. And, we intend, and very racist in her own right, it's not just her husband's platform. And we intend to bring all of this out in Philadelphia and protest that week. And we want to end it with one that the IUC is very involved in, build a movement against racism and capitalism. And, that would be bringing these movements together, because you cannot talk about Palestine without talking about resistance, without talking about the U.S. Israel helps train U.S. police forces. We see it, and here in New York, and the global workers movement. You don't hear much about what's happening with the workers in France, because I think the workers in Verizon, if they saw the workers in France were going out in general strikes every week, they might get an idea, but so it's up to us to really bring those messages out, and we'll keep doing it. I'm sorry I can't stay for the march tomorrow, but next time. So thank you.